Haven't even got the microphone up. Haven't even got the microphone ready. Bollocks. Hello, good evening, ghouls and fiends. Welcome to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, Tez. There's the camera. And we're live. Oh, is this thing on? We are live on YouTube. Yeah, kind of figured we've not done a live in a very long time. I had a free evening. So we're kind of going a bit earlier than usual. We're not doing a watch party. I'll explain shortly. I've sort of just had a quick mad rush because I was going to grab some things to show on camera, and we're kind of already live and we're already sort of had the channel hanging around for a bit too long. So, hi, ghouls and fiends. Uh, so originally the wife was out tonight. Her plans at the very last minute have unfortunately cancelled on her, which is very unfortunate, understandable, but unfortunate. And I just didn't want her to be alone. So we're going to be recording / streaming the podcast. We're going to do the news, we're going to do reviews, but no watch party. But hey, a live stream is better than no stream. A stream is better than, me just sort of recording as and when, which has sort of been the case recently. What I was having a mad dash to kind of grab is what I have been busy with. I'll talk about my weekend shortly, but this is the current project. So I have been slowly working through. It's going to be all out of focus. Let's bring it right up to the camera, see if it autofocuses. No. It has got autofocus on this camera. That's probably as good as we're going to get. So I've been kind of working through Deathwatch. I've almost finished the Deathwatch kill team. So here's the current work in progress. We're just on the base layer. Abaddon Black, I think. Or Black Legion. And then some Lead Belcher on the arm. But I have been following little tutorials. So I am feeling like I'm getting a bit better. So pre-tutorial, I'd done this little chap from the Night Watch, or the Night Lords, I should say. And I initially got the Night Lords as a bit of a contrast to the Death Watch. I do sort of feel like I am mainlining Night Lords now. As much as possible. I'm still very novice-y, haven't played any Warhammer yet. But in terms of the hobby, come on, focus. No, not going to focus. Mainlining them. But, since following tutorials, I have done... Okay, so pre-tutorials, here's another Deathwatch. Pretty decent colours, considering that was just me following the app, the Citadel app. Same for this chap here, not terrible, not super neat, not terrible. But then following tutorials, I've done this Deathwatch, which I'm pretty pleased with. Because I'm not very neat. I don't have the steadiest hands. I'm pretty pleased with him. Big machine gun boy. And then this Night Lord, which I'm pleased enough. I'm pretty hard on myself. I'm pleased enough, but it's still not super neat because Night Lords have got a lot of intricate trim. So I have gone a bit overboard. I've got the combat patrol for Night Lords. I probably said Night Kings or whatever. Read the Night Lords book trilogy up there. Up there. You might not be able to see it on the camera, but I have got it. It was on offer, £8 on Amazon. It had been in my to-read Kindle basket for a little while, but then I sort of got the notification on Amazon it was available on offer, the trilogy, for £8. So went for it. But at the moment, what I've been reading, so while I was away, I've done a deal on Kindle for Kindle Unlimited for you get 2 months for 2 months was £3, and then it goes up to the usual £9. So Vix, my wife, she's been enjoying it because we have a shared Kindle account thing. She's been getting on with that, reading her the stuff she likes reading. but I read Maggie's Grave, blitzed through that. That was great. The point where I read Maggie's Grave, basically, we went away on a bit of a baby moon last weekend. So I've got ankle surgery like in a week's time. So I'm going to be kind of held up, not really be able to do anything for a couple of months at least. And then obviously with the baby on the way, we wanted to have a little holiday before everything changes. I should also mention I've not just got the Combat Patrol of Night Lords, I have also got a Dreadnought. That's my big project for while I'm recuperating, is to build and paint a Dreadnought. I'm pretty terrified about the painting aspect because I don't want to do it badly, because obviously it's a bigger item than the miniatures, but very excited about that anyway. So I've got a lot of Night Lords to build and paint, is the crux of it, considering I just wanted to start off doing Deathwatch. But we went to the Lake District, had a great time, and did a bunch of reading. And so I finished reading Maggie's Grave, which is pretty good, actually. Very short read, very quick read. And then moved on to now reading the Deathwatch Omnibus. I picked up the Deathwatch Omnibus on Kindle a little while ago. I haven't read that much of it because it's flipping huge, but I think the Omnibus is just arcs. It's a collection of 3 books. But I have gotten into it. I'm starting to recognise the characters, the different things. Like there's certain terminology, which I've heard a lot of the terminology with Warhammer 40k. I don't necessarily understand it all. Like slowly getting to grips with what a Primarch is, and what the impact of various, how, like with Deathwatch and their paladins, they'll have different faction symbols depending on where they've come from. I mean, if it's blank and it's scratched or whatever, they've been expelled from their faction. And then from that certain positions, certain weaponry used in the miniatures would only make sense from certain factions. So it's all a whole learning curve. But along the way, I've just been like, well, Night Lords actually do look really cool. And looking into a bit of their background, like, with their Primarch from the Horus Heresy, which, I'm slowly reading Horus Rising. I know there's like 30 books. Yeah, essentially the long and short of it is I'm getting into my Warhammer 40k. I'm going to have a drink for tonight's stream. We found a cat bar while we were in, I don't know if it's Cartmel, Grasmere, somewhere in the Lake Districts. Cat Pissed Session IPA. And at the bar there was a cat. And you could go through to another area where there's a bunch of cats that just mull around. Pretty cool. We love the Lake District. But hey, you've not tuned in the Ministry of Horror live to hear me ramble about Warhammer 40k or Lake District. You want to chat horror. So, as I say on a number of podcasts, we're going to keep this lean, because we are going to keep this lean. Look, I got glass. We're going to talk some horror news. That's me pouring my drink. I'm not, relieving myself. We are going to talk some horror news. And then for the reviews, I've now managed to watch 3 films this week. I know, recently it has been slim pickings when it comes to watching newer horror films. Available at, decent enough kind of prices. But I threw it out to the Discord earlier, and so I did spend the Benjamins to watch Primate. So we're going to have a review later on of Primate. And along with that, I watched on Prime Insidious Tales, along with Deathstalker, the remake of the 80s campy classic fantasy action film, which is now streaming on Shudder. So, gaming, I mean, I've done a little bit of Resident Evil because we were away at the weekend for like a long weekend. I haven't really done much gaming. It's mainly been reading and, of course, watching horror films. And building Warhammer. We had the sun here in the UK for a day. It was literally a day this week, and the wife wanted to do some gardening, but she wanted me to relax because I'd done so many chores around work throughout the day. And I was like, I kind of fancy painting. I've got a Deathwatch made. I kind of fancy getting it painted. She's like, oh, why don't you bring the paints outside? And I thought, well, I need to prime it anyway, so yeah. In the sun, I had a fire set, and I was then just painting. Just did a couple of layers, as the first ones that I showed. But yeah, I do just find, it just such a therapeutic hobby, painting Warhammer. Who'd have thought it? Eh? But no, thoroughly enjoy it. Anyway, ghouls and fiends, let's get on with some horror news. So first up, and all the horror news comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Of course it does, it always does. Sony taps Final Destination Bloodlines duo for Metal Gear Solid adaptation, Mike Wilson writes. The long in development Metal Gear Solid film adaptation has finally got directors. Per The Hollywood Reporter, Sony had inked a deal with Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein, who had revived the Final Destination franchise last year with Final Destination Bloodlines, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Under the deal with Sony, Lipovsky and Stein's newly launched company, Wonder Lab, will develop films for the team to direct, as well as original projects for them to produce. The goal is to create wildly fun, commercial, character-driven, genre-bending films, which happens to include Hideo Kojima's 1998 stealth action classic. Avi and Ari Arad will produce the film. Lipovsky and Stein had been in demand since Bloodline cleaned up at the box office, with the duo being snapped up for the Earthling adaptation. I don't know what that is. The sci-fi thriller Freaks 2. I don't know what that is. Do I know what Freaks is? Sci-fi thriller. And a new Venom animated movie, among others. Okay, so let's further on in the news. The Metal Gear Solid adaptation has long been in the works. Back in 2020, Dune star Oscar Isaac had been pegged to star as the iconic Solid Snake, which I do remember hearing, under the direction of Jordan Voight Roberts, who did Kong Skull Island. Voight Roberts had also written a draft of the script for the adaptation. No word on what's become of this draft, as well as Isaac and Voight Roberts' involvement in the project. Okay, so this is interesting. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed Final Destination Bloodlines. I thought it was a really fun film. It revitalized my interest in the series because I enjoyed the first two films, and I didn't really keep up with many of the later sequels. I mean, all of them are good to decent to good. None of them are particularly bad. I think it was only the fourth or the fifth one that I wasn't really that fussed with. But otherwise, they're all entertaining. But I really, really felt like, we're back, baby, when it comes to Final Destination. I mean, a Metal Gear Solid film in this day and age where a video game adaptation isn't an instant death knell of, poor quality, because we've had a few decent ones, in the last few years. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there have been a few decent ones. So I think it's just got to be finding that right balance, because the character of Solid Snake is ripe for cinematic portrayal. Who would do that best? I'm not entirely sure. Let's be honest, it's probably going to be Pedro Pascal, no doubt, usually is. But the tone is going to be the most interesting, because the game, we'll just focus on the first game, because that's the first two are the only ones that I ever completed. And I know everyone loves the third one. I got bored of it, to be honest. But for the first game, it's a very serious setting. It's like kind of potential of nuclear war with mechs and lots of stuff going on, cloning. It's quite a complex storyline with a number of different facets. But it's all done quite straight-laced. I mean, you could look at certain, the boss characters like Cyborg, Psycho Mantis, the grenade. I can't remember a few of those. There's like a grenade chap with a grenade launcher or whatever. There's a few different bosses in that game. And you could look at it and think, oh god, right, if we were going to adapt it point for point in terms of characterizations, could they come across a bit cheesy if the tone of the film wasn't taken super seriously? I mean, potentially, it depends. You could then lean in. You could either lean into the characters too much, the antagonist characters too much, and becomes a bit cartoonish, which takes away the feel of the Solid Snake character, or you go heavy into that espionage thriller feel, and you could fall into that trap of either not including those fan favorite antagonists for those key boss battle moments in the film, or the characters are in name only, and the portrayal is very different to Psycho Mantis or whomever. So I think it's going to be, as Fran in the chat says, it's going to be hard to adapt well. I think I have faith in these directors, but Final Destination is quite different tonally to Metal Gear Solid. I mean, Bloodlines I did feel slotted in really well into those older Final Destination films. The tone was there. What you wanted was all there. For a Metal Gear Solid, yeah, it's the potential to be a great film is there. I think it just depends on what is adapted and how accurately. Because, yeah, those characters didn't feel outlandish in the game, because of it being that kind of odd world, but done seriously. How that would transpose into a film, I just don't know. But I'm interested to see what happens with it. Next, Shudder acquires supernatural horror The Voices of Our Mother from Ready or Not actor Mark O'Brien. Alex DiVincenzo writes, ahead of its North American premiere at Panic Fest in Kansas City this weekend, The Voices of Our Mother has been acquired by Shudder, Deadline reports. The Canadian supernatural horror film is written and directed by actor Mark O'Brien. Ready or Not and Arrival, what was in those, I should say. It follows Harriet Scaflin after the death of her mother at the age of 95. In the aftermath, Harriet has unexplainably has an fucking hell, I can't read. Harriet has an unexplainable health scare, bringing her 4 estranged children to the family home to care for them. As their past animosities and secrets are revealed, they soon realise their mother's health issues may be supernatural, and the awoken evil inside her is seeking revenge on her children for her own survival. Sheila McCarthy, Georgina Riley O'Brien, Carolina Bartzkes, Alex Overes-Meyer, and Anna Ferguson, along with Sean Doyle, star. Oh well, I can't think of who Mark O'Brien is by the name. I want to say it's the brother. I want to say he's the chap that was also in Orphan Black. Have a little quick Google. No, he was the husband in Ready or Not. Well, there you go. I mean, it sounds intriguing enough. If it lands on a streamer that I have, I'll give it a watch. Now, a bit of horror news which has excited cult horror fans or niche horror fans, but for some reason it's a film I'm aware of. I've just never seen. It's never really been readily available on streamers when I've been watching said streamers. I think it has been on, Shudder before or Prime before. But for fans of Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, I think it was called, there's a sequel. A sequel is officially moving forward. Robert Englund will have a larger role in Behind the Mask 2, The Return of Leslie Vernon, John Squires writes. Oh, this cat-pissed IPA is pretty nice, actually. Anyway, the surprise announcement was made last night that Leslie Vernon will return in 20 years later sequel Behind the Mask 2, The Return of Leslie Vernon, with a Kickstarter campaign launching soon that will allow fans to become part of the experience. The good news, the movie is happening no matter what. The fundraise will only serve to juice up the budget. The stars of the 2006 movie Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, will reunite for the upcoming sequel, with Nathan Basil, Angela Goethals, and Robert Englund confirmed to return as Leslie Vernon, Taylor Gentry, and Doc Halloran, respectively. Scott Glosserman is also back to direct Behind the Mask 2, with David J. Steve back to write the film. Glosserman previews, for 20 years, people have asked us if Leslie would ever come back. Fans kept this movie alive by sharing it, quoting it, introducing it to their friends, and treating it like something worth holding on to. This sequel is happening because of them. Horror legend Robert Englund played the Dr. Loomis-like Doc Halloran in the original movie back in 2006, and Glossman promises that his role will be more substantial in the sequel. Glossman tells Rue Morgan in a new interview he has a more substantial role. He'll be a more consequential character in the film, whereas in the first film he had a cameo, albeit an important one. This time he's more significant. I'll leave it at that. In the 2006 meta slasher, aspiring slasher icon Leslie Vernon gives a documentary crew exclusive access to his life as he plans his reign of terror over the sleepy town of Glen Echo. What's Leslie Vernon been up to the past 20 years, and what's next for the character? Yeah, I mean, all of the concept for Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, or yeah, I think it's The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Sounds interesting. It's just one of those kind of films that I remember back in the day seeing it probably in a blockbuster, or being one of those films, kind of like The Collector, that arrived on a shelf. I saw the artwork, and now with The Collector, I remember renting that one night, watching it with some friends, being like, bloody hell, this is actually really good. And then the collection came out, which is also really good. But the Behind the Mask, it never got picked up by me. But I've never heard bad things about it. It's just one of those films that it has a really excitable fan base. Not a huge fan base. In the pantheon of horror films, you don't, well, I suppose in this modern age, you don't see clips of it. You don't see like particular moments shared online. You don't see discussions of particular scenes. I didn't even know Robert Englund was in it until this announcement of him returning in the sequel. So, I do want to check it out at some point. It's definitely one of those ones that's just sort of flown under my radar. Speaking of films that have flown under my radar, just because I've normally written them off as trash, I do think for a future episode, I am going to have to put myself through the Resident Evil cinematic series. I love the games. I love the games. Great games. Amazing games. But I've only really seen the first one and maybe part of two. And I just remember thinking, it's not really Resident Evil. I mean, I appreciate with Apocalypse, they did start trying to incorporate a bit more in terms of, characterizations. We had Jill, the Nemesis. But yeah, I kind of just put them as like kind of MTV editing slop. But they are all on Disney Plus now. So, and I say all, I mean, the original Mila Djokovic series. Maybe I need to give those a watch. But I do think, in terms of back to this news story, Behind the Mask, if it, I mean, you know what? Let's have a look. Prime. Have a quick look at Prime. It's going to be anywhere. It might be available there. Behind the Mask. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. 4.5 out of 5 star rating. And it is rent or buy. Rent for a £5 or buy for £9. Now, for a film that came out in 2006 that isn't widely, it's not got a huge following, I do think those rates are a little bit steep. A little bit steep. I'll wait for it to arrive on streaming. Yeah, got a child on the way. Don't want to be spending bunts unnecessarily. And finally, in the horror news, oh no, I didn't even want to click on that news. I had something else clicked, not this. Oh, here we go. Tales from the Crypt to finally make its streaming debut on Shudder next month. Megan Navarro writes. It's halfway to Halloween and Shudder is pulling out all the undead stops. Today, the horror streamer has announced it will exclusively debut all 7 seasons, uncensored, of the 90s cult classic horror anthology series, Tales from the Cult. I should preface that there's no confirmation this is for the UK. If it's like anything else, we won't get it, or we'll get 4 episodes of one season, 2 of another, and whatever. Featuring the iconic Crypt Keeper, voiced by John Cassier, the series' first season debuted on May 1st, with additional seasons rolling out weekly every Friday through June 12th. The news hails from Overlook Film Festival, where Cassia revealed an all-new teaser and poster art in a panel for the cult anthology series. In Tales from the Crypt, inspired by the 1950s EC comics, each episode offers a self-contained story hosted by the Crypt Keeper, a wisecracking corpse known for his macabre puns. With its signature unrestricted gore, profanity, and dark irony, the show's episode styles range from comedy to drama and deliver twisted moral lessons where bad people meet poetically horrific ends, and issues like greed, lust, and moral decay lead to tragic consequences. The original HBO series features a long list of Hollywood A-list guest stars, including Brad Pitt, Demi Moore, Michael J. Fox, John Lithgow, Christopher Reeve, Catherine O'Hara, Steve Buscemi, Brooke Shields, and many more. The talent also extends behind the camera with notable directors including Robert Zemeckis, Toby Hooper, and William Friedkin, as well as Tom Hanks, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Michael J. Fox. The reopening of the Tales of the Crypt content archive is made possible by Dark Castle Entertainment, Lauren Schuler Donner, and Walter Hill, which is to say that this streaming announcement is a monumentous occasion. The series' complicated rights history has, until now, prevented streaming debuts and remakes. Get ready, boils and ghouls. A halfway to Halloween miracle arrives on Shudder next month. So, Tales from the Crypt is one of those series that I don't know if we ever really got it in the UK, or if we did, it was certainly before my time, wasn't readily available on, terrestrial TV, perhaps. It wasn't something that I saw, but I was readily aware of. I think we had a cartoon series, which I might have caught the odd episode of. But the concept was something that often, it was a huge deal, I'm pretty sure. Simpsons may well have had a Tales from the Crypt type episode lampooning it. I'm sure other films will have had a Tales from the Crypt type. It's one of those things where it lived in pop culture. And I've seen one or two of the films. I think I've seen, they would be shown on the Sci-Fi Channel back in the day, like Demon Knight, like Bordeaux of Blood, I think. So very much aware of Tales from the Crypt, but I'd never really seen a proper episode. So I am hoping we get this in the UK, because that is really exciting, and especially when it's such a well-loved series with a great history that, as with a lot of things these days, has been held up with rights issues. I mean, fans of Friday the 13th will know the issues that go on there, because it's been so long since we've had a proper Jason film. But yeah, I mean, I hope we get this in the UK. No word on if we will. Right, let's move on from the news all the way speedily along to the reviews. Now, I haven't prepared the usual review pages and all that gumph. This has been a very hastily thrown together stream. But as all the reviews, I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot. I'm going to talk about the highs, the lows, and I'm going to give you my score out of 10. Now, first up, after spending hours, days, whatever, scrolling through the streamers to try and decide on something to watch, I made the decision to give a new addition to Prime called Insidious Tales a go. Insidious Tales, the 2026 film. It's only an hour and 5 minutes. So that sort of played into my decision to watch it, because I thought, well, that's not that much of a time commitment. It's a chilling anthology of psychological and supernatural horrors, where ordinary people collide with unseen forces that seep quietly into their lives. So I don't really have a proper blurb here, but it is essentially a anthology film. But in terms of it being an anthology, it is, I don't know if there's much of a differentiation. It is a collection of short stories. Now, traditionally, you could say an anthology film is that, but there is a wraparound story. There is a raison d'être. The VHS films, notably, Tales from the Dark Side. There's, the Twilight Zone. There's always usually a bit of a wraparound story to kind of draw these pieces together to give them a reason. They don't have this in this. There is literally a collection of short films, which do vary in quality. An Australian production, I believe. Directors include Lisa Ovies, Ryan Rafferty, Matthew Richards, Writing by Ryan Rafferty, Matthew Richard, Shane Thompson, starring Juan Abdias, Kelly Curran, and Azriel Darman, among others. I will say this. Okay, it is well made. Definitely been some money behind it. It just feels a little bit pointless because, as I say, the Insidious Tales, it doesn't even really feel like there's a particular theme across them. The stories range from a new form in prison of punishment, wherein the convict, depending on what choice they make for receiving this punishment or going on death row, routinely have parts of their body removed, and then they have to go to these schools to give talks. But each time that a body part is removed, the family, the surviving family of the killer's victim, are there to authorize the dismemberment and also watch. And it's a father and daughter who are basically watching and seeing this guy have a hand removed first, and then a leg, and then I think he has his other leg removed. Pretty sure he then has like part of his lip removed, part of his face removed later on. So it's pretty dark. But there's no sort of lead up to what got him into that situation. What did he exactly do? Am I meant to feel sorry for him? We then have another tale with an artist who does these miniature renditions of crimes. And I think I've seen a part of this clipped on social media, because I did recognize it, where part of what's occurring is she has this fascination with these crimes. And I don't know if she does them for work or whatnot, but there's almost like a demonic part of it. There's like a morbid curiosity which leads to a demonic appearance, and it is quite brutal. That tale in particular is quite brutal. There's a tale of a monster living in a child's closet. The worst one is the spider one. There is a spider tale in this, which the story didn't really make much sense. The graphics were kind of poor. It was a bit of a pointless one. But as I said, it is made well. None of the acting is particularly bad, and with any anthology film, you get bad with good. There's not that many anthology films that are smash hits throughout. The ones that are smaller with maybe 2 to 3 stories. The tighter anthologies potentially, but this one's got like 5 or 6 stories in it, and it's a real mixed bag. So I'm going to give Insidious Tales. I don't think I've got my score on screen because we're just going in stream mode. I'm going to give Insidious Tales a 5 out of 10. It's a little over an hour. It's available for free on Prime. There's some decent stuff in there, but there's also some kind of pointless stuff. So maybe give it a go. We'll then move on to what I watched today, which is Primate. Primate is a 2025 American natural horror film about an adopted chimpanzee who gets rabies and becomes violent. Directed and co-written by Johan Roberts. Also co-wrote the screenplay with Ernest Riera. It stars Johnny Sequeira, Jessica Alexander, Victor Wyant, Gia Hunter, Benjamin Cheng, and Troy Kotzer. Okay. I won't read too much about the plot of the film, kind of going into it, but it is essentially Lucy, as a college student arriving back home to return to her home in Hawaii. She spent a number of years away studying. She's got a friend with her and some friends, additional guests, and people they've met on board. They've all sort of invited themselves to her home, where her deaf father lives, along with his daughter and Lucy's younger sister, along with a chimpanzee that is highly intelligent and has been taught to communicate using a soundboard software on a tablet. So kind of think of I think the character might have been called Lucy in Congo. It's kind of similar to that. And also, the essence of this story is animal gets rabies and goes from being loving family member to rampant murderer. Cujo. It is Cujo with a monkey, with a chimpanzee. But when it comes to animal attack films, you don't really need too much of a complex setup. When you have an animal attack film or natural horror film, I guess the terminology is, you really just want some uber violent deaths or some creepy tension with people in a situation that they can't really escape from, with something which, in theory, could happen. It's not aliens, it's not monsters, it's an animal which we all know and love. Yeah, essentially the chimpanzee gets rabies. And from there, it then becomes a bit of a Mexican standoff to try and survive. They don't have access to their phones because of the point of this all kicking off. The phones are upstairs, and they kind of find themselves stuck in the pool because Ben the chimp doesn't know how to swim, and he also has a bit of a fear of water now that he has rabies. What can I say about this film? It's brutal. It's not non-stop violence, but like one of the scenes which you may or may not have had ruined for you on social media, I did. It does happen in the first 5 minutes, though. To be fair, involves someone getting their face torn off. It's pretty violent. And the kills have a nice bit of variety, whilst also giving Ben a kind of a template of his actions. It's also quite sad because you do also get the moments of seeing Ben before he has been infected with rabies, and where he's just, they love him. He's a loving member of the family, and it's kind of like, you have a dog. They're part of the family. They're not just a pet, but they're part of your crew. So there's not really any negatives in Primate, to be honest with you. It doesn't outstay its welcome. The effects are pretty damn good. The violence, as I say, it's a decent variety. It is pretty damn gory. There are a couple of moments with some of the attacks where you do wince a bit. You do think, bloody hell, chill it down a little bit. But overall, if you like an animal attack horror, you got to give Primate a watch. I don't really have any negatives. No one's especially great acting wise. No one's especially bad. There's not really a standout performance. A lot of the characters are fairly forgettable. But again, you throw this into the realm of like a slasher film, essentially, slasher film with animal attacks. Then more often than not, the people in them aren't that memorable. They're cannon fodder to an extent. So what would I give Primate? I think it's a solid 7 out of 10. I was a little bit hesitant because it was only available to purchase digitally for full beans. If I'm going to buy a film, I generally prefer to buy it physically. Or, if I'm buying it digitally, then it's on offer. And it's like, I recently bought Idle Hands because it was available to buy for £3. And that's been on my to re-watch list again for a very long time. So I'm quite happy with that. And I also do need to see if another sort of 90s flying under the radar teen horror film, Disturbing Behaviour, if that goes onto sale, I'll pick that up digitally because it's not going to be available on Blu-ray, or especially not on 4K. But the point being, I don't really like buying new films digitally. I'd prefer to watch them in the cinema, rent them, or buy the physical release. It's just how I am. But yeah, Primate, I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. Really, really worth a watch. And then finally in the reviews, the 1983 original, never seen, but it's now been remade by the pretty damn entertaining Steven Kostanski. Has now remade Deathstalker. It's 2025 sword and sorcery film. Stars Daniel Bernhard as the titular character alongside Patton Oswalt, Christina Orjala, Paul Lazenby, and Nina Bergman. Peter Koplowski is one of the executive producers. Okay, so I've never seen the original, but it's a typical, as far as I know, sword and sorcery type film. Now, the only sort of sword and sorcery films I've seen, we got Gruff in the chat. Hey, Gruff, how's it going, dude? Hope you well. Now, the only sort of sword and sorcery films that I ever really saw growing up were the Conan films. The Conan films, they were very formative. I mean, for me, like, I know it's kind of sacrilege. I sort of prefer Conan the Destroyer. It's probably the worst film. out of the two, but it's the first one I saw growing up, and it was that mix of sword fights, hench, but also monsters and outlandish. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But I've never seen the original Deathstalker. I've never even seen, like particular scenes from it. Kind of similar to like Krull. I think Krull's another one. Red Sonja, I've maybe caught bits of. So ultimately, sword and sorcery fantasy films, I probably would enjoy. I just haven't really seen that many of them. So going into this one, I didn't know much, but I did know it was made by Steven Kostanski, who I really am enjoying their catalogue so far. So, Deathstalker, a former knight, picks through the dead and dying on a battlefield. He steals jewelry and a golden amulet from a dying man. A nearby village, while Deathstalker is eating in a tavern, a two-headed troll attacks him in search of the amulet. Deathstalker kills the troll and, having decided the amulet is more trouble than it is worth, throws it into a river. However, the amulet reappears in his pocket. After several attempts to get rid of the amulet fails, Deathstalker visits the witch Toralva. While unable to read the language on the amulet, Toralva tells Deathstalker that it is bound to him until he dies, and that he must search for a wizard who can understand the writing on the amulet. Toralva further warns him that a great evil is rising, but Deathstalker does not believe her. The film essentially opens in a world where there's like these kind of hell knights who are just hell bent death and destruction and violence. And in amongst them, there are the men of the nation, kind of your typical robed and armored knights fighting them in sword battles. But these kind of hell soldiers, demons, are pretty damn violent. And Deathstalker is, he's a bit of a lone barbarian mercenary type who, whilst saving a dying man on a battlefield, doesn't really shy away from then going, right, what you got in your pockets, mate? What you got here? What's this? I love that. That looks nice. Now, the reason I say it has that typical Steven Kostanski charm is Steven Kostanski has been involved in a number of these kind of horror comedies that just have a particular tone. Now, you might also know the name from the 2016 film The Void. There's been some prior ones, but The Void really stood out to me because not only is it a pretty damn good Lovecraftian Thing-esque horror with some really creepy visuals and hot terror, really good effects, like proper good use of practical effects. But he's then also done Psycho Gorman and Frankie Frico. Now, Frankie Frico is all right. I enjoyed it for the most part. Psycho Gorman is very, very good. And then they also did the Storm Drain. They also did a commercial for the Storm Drain segment of VHS 94, which is another standout. So, and that's Steven Kostanski with either Jeremy Gillespie or Adam Brooks. So, in a lot of his projects, they're very practical effect heavy. And that I love that straight off the bat anyway, because it automatically feels, I don't know, more homely than watching over the top CGI ridiculousness. Like when people have gone to the effort to make these creations, I just think, oh God, it looks cool. It automatically makes me a fan of their work. And the thing is, as well, with a Steven Kostanski joint, is there's this level of humour which I could only really liken, I suppose, to what would it liken it to? Rick and Morty. You got characters called like Blib Blob, Glim Glam, Bang Jam, Bang Bong. And it's just silly names like that, which are just fun to say, but just outlandish. Like the Psycho Gorman and Frankie Frico are like live action cutaway segments from like a Rick and Morty or Old School Family Guy or whatever, just but in a horror world and in an overall story rather than just random cuts for the sake of it. So with this, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. it had some decent performances. I mean, Patton Oswalt plays this dwarf goblin sorcerer, good guy sorcerer. And Patton Oswalt's always pretty good value. I think he got like cancelled or sort of cancelled or something recently. I don't know what that was for or if any of that was valid. Don't know. But I haven't heard any particulars of what it is. But you know, is always good entertainment in film or TV. And Daniel Bernhard, I don't really know the name, but it's got quite a straight to DVD catalogue of films, you know, in terms of the action and martial arts, done a number of the sequels to Bloodsport, things like that. Yeah, I don't really know his background, but what I'm going to say about Deathstalker is a little bit long for what it needs to be. I mean, it's only like 103 minutes, not super long, but there is a little moment in the middle, I suppose, where it drags slightly. But overall, like, in a world where we're sort of devoid of practical effects focused films, we're very devoid of decent sword and sorcery films. You know, more often than not, they are the sort of films that just either don't get put out at all, or if they do, it's such a gamble that doesn't pay off. I mean, I never got around to watching the Dungeons and Dragons film, but I always heard, you know, it is actually good, but I don't think it did that well. And none of the other Dungeons and Dragons films did. But with this, you know, I don't imagine there's a huge amount of money in it, but it doesn't necessarily look cheap. It looks like they're just really good at what they do, really resourceful at what they do, and inventive. And I think that's the thing that I just admire so much with Steven Kostanski stuff is it's inventive, it's original, it's got humor, it's got character. There's life there. So yeah, Deathstalker is currently available on Shudder. I have to say, you got to check it out. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. 8 out of 10. So that's all it for the reviews, because I now need to have dinner with my wife if she's back home now, I think. Don't know. I'll have to go check. It's been a bit of a madcap evening, but let's catch up on the chat before we go. Fran says, so I've got Gruff in the chat. Hey, dude, awesome to have you back on. Well, you know, we haven't done a live show in a very long time. Fran, I've got Disturbing Behaviour on DVD, one of my early dad purchases. Yeah, I remember really enjoying it back in the day. I mean, it's very much, I guess, like a Stepford Wives, Invasion of the Body Snatchers type film, but so is The Faculty, and The Faculty is awesome. It's a decent cast. It is one of those films that kind of came out, you know, in a world that had, let's say, for slashers, Scream. There was also Cherry Falls, which is decent. It just didn't, you know, pop off in the same way. So while we had The Faculty, there was also Disturbing Behaviour. Still good, it just didn't really pop off. So I'll have a quick look at if Disturbing Behaviour is available yet at a decent price. Let's just say so. Pop-ups, bloody pop-ups on everything. Disturbing Behaviour. Available to rent or buy. Rent for £3.50, buy for £8. Well, I'd want to buy it. Well, if I want to spend £8 on it, I'm a real cheapskate. Got a baby on the way. That's my excuse now for being cheap. So that's the guys catching up. So Gruff, see you have a nice Twin Peaks box set there. Is that the original series or the new one? Still not seen that. Yes, Gruff. So I have gone through a habit over the years of building a collection and then kind of going, well, collection's taking up space and I could get some money from that. Blah, 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 blah. I've owned 2 very good collections of Twin Peaks over the years. So one was called The Complete Mystery, which is series 1, 2, and Fire Walk With Me on Blu-ray. Ended up trading that in after a while. I then got, which is very fortunate, a box set which is called Twin Peaks from Z to A, the complete event, which was series 1, 2, Fire Walk With Me, the film, The Missing Pieces, which I've still never seen, which is all of the, it's like kind of an additional film of deleted content from Fire Walk With Me, I believe. and then Series 3, the limited event series from a few years ago, which was incredible. It's very later Lynch in terms of uber weirdness, but that's always been David Lynch. I loved it all. And I had that for a number of years. A really nice box set. I think it was all Blu-ray, but the pilot of season 1, the pilot of course, was 4K. But I ended up trading it in, or I don't know if I sold it or traded it in, because it became very valuable. It was out of print and it became very, very expensive. So I got a good bit of money for that, but I always regretted doing it. So I did end up picking up Twin Peaks. It's series 1, 2, and 3. I don't really think it's got much in terms of special features, but what I do have to remind myself is, whilst I do like collecting and I do like getting special features, I don't often watch all the special features. I'm not that much of a completionist to put the time that I want to put in, but as we all know, as we get older, time becomes more limited to do cool things like watching special features or watching a director's commentary. It's a limited commodity. So that is series 1, 2, and 3. But then I have also got the Criterion Collection 4K of Fire Walk with Me, the film, because I have been meaning to give that a rewatch for a very long time. I've just never really got around to it. I watched The Faculty randomly recently on Movie Channel. Still holds up. I thought, great fun. Yeah, I always remember back in the day loving The Faculty, but always thinking, yeah, the CGI at the very end with the big alien monsters a bit kind of shonky, but otherwise great film. I actually don't think the CGI is that bad. I mean, when you watch some films that have got particularly bad CGI, it's of its time, but it's fine, and it doesn't really detract from the film, to be honest. Like, the film is great fun. I have The Faculty 2, Francis. I thought they were talking of remaking it, but I hope not. Yeah, I imagine they probably will, but to be honest, I hope not. I'd hope for another attempt, because we've had so many attempts over the years. It's always going to happen. I'd hope for another attempt at Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I know that there was Invasion, or The Invasion, which I never really bothered watching, and it sort of just appeared and disappeared. But the classics for me are the Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland. Who else is in the Donald Sutherland one? Whose name am I completely blanking on? Jeff Goldblum. Leonard Nimoy. Pretty sure Jeff Goldblum's in it. The Leonard Nimoy film from the 70s. And also the Abel Ferrara, and I really liked it. It's really dark, but I really liked it. The Abel Ferrara Body Snatchers film set on an army base from like 1993. That's not that readily available, but that was the one that always creeped me out. There's a particular moment in that when one of the characters, the girl, is having a bath, and the way that people get infected, taken over, is it's kind of like Roots, and that is something that is from the original, well, from all the adaptations. But it starts like kind of approaching her bath and entering the bath to take her over. Really, really good. So I kind of hope that we'd get another attempt at Body Snatchers, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because there's been so many. But The Faculty, leave it as is. I think it is coming, but leave it as is. Gruff says, it's only going to get even more limited for you now, mate, with the baby on the way. Yeah, I know that. I know. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I've got ankle surgery next week. I'm going to be laid up for at least a couple of months. I'm going to use that as a prime opportunity to get as much watching done as possible. I've taken the step of moving my Xbox into the bedroom, which at first I was like, kind of like playing Resident Evil or whatever in here by myself with my headphones on. But yeah, you know what? It's preparing, my kind of where I'm going to live basically for a little while. I'll be able to get up and get about, but I just won't be able to do any weight bearing on the ankle for a while. Gruff, I saw the 1993 version first as a teenager and thought it was great, but not seen it since. Yeah, I remember seeing it on TV back in the day as a kid, and I think it was probably my first Body Snatchers. I think my introduction to Body Snatchers as a concept was The Simpsons. It was either on a Treehouse of Horrors, or it might have been I had like a Simpsons Halloween book, which I remember loving. So that's where I kind of got the idea of the concept. I did see it a few years later and it does hold up. It's got very, very creepy moments and a great finale around the army base as a setting. So definitely worth watching. Anyway, I've just heard the wife is home. I need to go have a very, very late dinner. Thank you very much for watching this impromptu live stream. I've had a great time. We will try and arrange something soon. I'll hopefully try to arrange like another form of watch party, watch something that's on Prime or Tubi or something like that. But until next time, ghouls and fiends. Thank you very much for watching. Shout out to, the TikTok's almost at 3,000 followers. It's just, considering like back in July we'd just hit 50 or 100, whatever. It's I do really enjoy, and if people haven't watched the TikTok, pretty much every day I put up film recommendations or rankings, and this is kind of just what goes on there. It's really easy and simple for me. People seem to like it to an extent. There's been some online fights, which is always quite entertaining. But yeah, and the YouTube, it's ever so slowly building, but I'm hoping in the next week to record another off the shelf. I haven't done much bonus content. I certainly need to do some Patreon stuff, of course. So again, huge shout out to Patreon, patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. Shout out to Gruff, of course. Shout out to JP, and we've got some free followers on there as well. You guys get a shout out. Up your membership. But thank you very much. I'll catch you guys later. I'm going to go have some dinner.